Today is July 27th, 2026. My name is Rob Carter of Kalamazoo Right to Life, and this is Pro-Life Week. Well, I do want a little continuation from the last time talking about Right to Life in Michigan endorsements for the upcoming August 4th primary. So the last time I talked about the race for governor. We have got two candidates, pro-life candidates left, Perry Johnson and John James. So we're not going to dwell on them today. I did mention the race for the U.S. Senate, Mike Rogers against a Democratic candidate who will be picked on the primary, the day of the primary, Haley Stevens or Abdul El Said. And the Democrats, they've got two liberal candidates. One of them is actually a socialist. So we'll see how that all plays out. But I want to focus today on more of the state races, more of the local races. And in the Michigan Senate, there really are two races I want to highlight. In the 18th district, the Michigan Senate, is Thomas Albert. He's our endorsed incumbent. He's running for re-election again. He needs your vote. Last election cycle, Republicans, pro-lifers reclaimed the state house, but we are still a few votes short or seats short on taking control of the state Senate. And we need the Senate. We do need the Senate. Thomas Albert is your candidate in the 18th district, and and he's a little bit north, Berry County, Allegan, even moving toward Lansing. But in the 20th state Senate district, there are two pro-life candidates vying for that seat. Kenny Clevenger lives up in the South Haven, Allegan area. And Chris Moratis, he lives in Paw Paw. So we're talking about an Allegan, Van Buren County state district, state Senate district. And both candidates are well positioned, and they are both strong pro-life candidates endorsed by Right to Life in Michigan, PAC. Now in the state house, well, let me back up a little bit here. I'm in Kalamazoo, and Kalamazoo, unfortunately, has become a bastion of liberal politics and politicians. So there are no pro-life candidates that we are endorsing for the state Senate or the state house. A lot of the reason for that is the Right to Life of Michigan PAC guidelines includes the issue of electability. And if Right to Life is going to commit to a candidate and have people making phone calls for that candidate, we want to make sure that our callers are efficient in who they're calling. Because if we're going to call in a race where we know the pro-life candidate's going to lose 60-40, we know he's going to lose, we're not going to invest the time to help that candidate per se, because we know that person is not going to win. But if we're in a district where it's 52-48 or 51-49, if it's really, really close, we would like to invest in those races. So we make phone calls for candidates in those swing districts. So unfortunately, Kalamazoo doesn't fit in that category for either the state Senate or the state house. But in the Michigan House, we do have a few. And one is the 39th district, primarily Van Buren County, is Pauline Wenzel. She is the incumbent and running for re-election. In the 44th district, these are house races. In the Battle Creek, Calhoun County area, Steve Frisbee. Now, there's an interesting race there because when he won back in 2024, he only won by about 70 votes. I mean, it was a squeaker. No landslide here for Steve Frisbee. So, and now he's running against the person he defeated 2 years ago. So he desperately needs your vote. Steve Frisbee in the 44th State House District. And I don't have the number here, but down in St. Joe County, Sturgis, Centerville, Three Rivers, Steve Cara is the incumbent. He's running for re-election, and he's the endorsed Right to Life candidate. And Steve, it's a much more conservative district, and I'm pretty sure Steve's going to win the very Republican district down in St. Joe County. But he does need your vote. You can't take these things for granted. So keep those candidates in mind when you vote on August 4th, or if you're going to vote early, because voting is early and is now available. I think it was since July 25th. So if you want to vote early, those are your candidates for those more local races. And like I said before, for governor, you've got Perry Johnson, you've got John James. Let the voters decide, because either candidate is acceptable, is pro-life, and is endorsed because they meet the pro-life criteria. Okay, let me just finish talking about the Democratic Socialists of America. Somehow, it almost seems like an oxymoron, because you've got a Democrat, which favors democracy, and then you've got socialists who are leaning more toward communism or socialism. So they don't seem to gel together. But anyway, I did hear that one of the three candidates who won in New York City, socialist candidate, Democrat, will win her seat for the U.S. Congress, because it's about 80% Democrats. But this woman, I thought it was a woman, she has made some really outlandish, insane statements with her platform. And the three that I really focus in on, she wants to abolish the U.S. Senate. Now, I don't have to remind my audience here that we Americans, we established three branches of government: the legislative, the executive, and the judicial. Three branches of government. But embedded in the legislative is a House, which is based on population. The more people live in your state, the more representatives you're going to have, or the Senate. And the Senate is based 2 senators from every state. And that's where the socialists go off the rails, because they look at, let's say, California. California has about 40 million people. And California has 2 senators. According to the Constitution, 2 senators per state. So California has 2 senators. Our smallest state, population-wise, is Wyoming. They have about 575,000 votes, or citizens. But they have 2 senators too. And these socialists are pulling their hair out, because it's just not fair. It's not fair that big populated states like California only get 2, and little teeny populated states like Wyoming get 2. It's just not fair. But it's not based on population. The House is based on population. The Senate is based on, if you are a Senate or a state, you have 2 representatives, two senators to represent your state. That is the way it is. But they don't think it's fair. Listen, it's fair. It is fair. Back in the olden days, before I think 1913, state houses would pick senators if there was a vacancy, or if there's an election. It didn't go to to a popular vote. State legislator or the governor might pick the senator on the national level. That changed, but that was changed by a constitutional amendment. So no Senate. She wants no Senate, and then now she wants no Supreme Court. Well, obviously she's upset because of Dobbs, that overturned Roe v. Wade, and she's upset at some of these other Supreme Court decisions. There was one on affirmative action a few years ago, and about 2 years ago there was one on presidential immunity that she didn't. They don't like, and then there was a recent one. They had to do with. I'm losing my memory on what it had to do. It wasn't affirmative action. It was maybe on immigration. They just don't like the Supreme Court. So most of the Democrats, they just want to enlarge the court from 9 to 13. She wants to actually abolish the Supreme Court. Here again, nullifying the Supreme Court, which gave us 3 branches. May I remind you, legislative, executive, president, and the judicial, the federal courts, Supreme Court, appellate courts, and district courts. So now she wants no Supreme Court, but she's upset. She does not like the Supreme Court's rulings. She doesn't like them. Well, if you get a Democratic Senate and a Democratic president, and if you have some vacancies, you can put in your people. I remember Lindsey Graham, who passed away about a week and a half ago, good pro-life senator. He voted for Elena Kagan. He voted for Ruth Bader Ginsburg and for Sonia Sotomayor, knowing full well that they were pro-abortion justices. But he voted for them because the president was in charge of picking his court. And Lindsey Graham gave the president his due. Democrats don't operate that way. They don't. If you are a Republican president nominating a so-called Republican judge to be a Supreme Court justice, they will automatically vote no. I think Ginsburg was confirmed by the Senate 96-3. But then you get someone like a Brett Kavanaugh or Amy Coney Barrett, that was a 52-48. No Democrat would vote for a Republican candidate. That's just how polarizing the Democrats can be. But thankfully, Lindsey Graham was much more generous by giving Presidents Clinton and Obama the candidates of their choice. Okay, so in the last item was from this woman in New York. She wants no police. Well, that makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? No police. So your house is being broken into, or there's someone who is committing a crime, and you see it, and you do a 911 call, but somehow there are no police to intervene. There's a robbery going on. A person may be being assaulted or beaten or raped, and if there are no police, there's no one to come to that person's aid. How can we have a safe and just society with norms and rules and laws? How can we have that if we don't have public safety to keep things in order? And we need police. Is every policeman pure as the white-driven snow? Of course not. No one is. We're all flawed people. But we do need police to enforce laws and to protect the citizenry. Okay, so just a few items from the Democratic Socialists of America. They are just kind of over the cliff. And I'm hoping and believing that the American public is going to reject the Socialist Democrats of America. It is not in the mainstream. It is not in the mainstream of American political thought. With that, I'll let you go. Remember, vote August 4th. Vote for your pro-life candidates on August 4th in the Michigan primary. With that, I'll let you go, and I'll see you next time.